the screen. On Thanksgiving Day, we lost a dear friend, mentor, educator, and leader. Trustee and foundation board member Karen Fahrenholtz passed away following a brief illness on Thanksgiving morning. We'll all greatly miss Karen's guidance, encouragement, her warmth, and her friendship. Please join me in a moment of silence for Karen, her husband Richard, their family, and all who grieve this loss. Thank you. She was a wonderful lady. We really are going to miss her so much. Well, we've devoted today's town hall. First of all, I hope everyone had a happy, healthy, safe Thanksgiving with families, friends, and can you believe tomorrow's December 1st? I cannot, but that time goes faster and faster, doesn't it? I hope you had a great Thanksgiving. It's nice to see all of you. Today, we're doing something different, as I hope you all know. We've devoted today's town hall to a discussion of our new student success platform, EAB Navigate. EAB is a comprehensive student success management system that connects students, faculty, and staff, advisors, creates a network, a collaborative network to measurably improve student success outcomes. And leading our discussion today will be someone we all know very well, Dr. Lisa Dougherty, our Vice President for Student Affairs and Enrollment. And Lisa, I want to thank you and many colleagues I know across the college for your leadership and support in selecting and launching this significant resource in our growing and comprehensive student success efforts. And then after we have the presentation and discussion, if time remains, we'll certainly open the floor to questions, comments, announcements, and celebrations. But the focus is EAB, and I turn it over to Lisa. Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you. You will only be listening to me for a couple of slides because I brought an expert witness with me, Dr. Gretchen Schulthes. So hello, everyone. Thank you for those of you who made it in person and weathered Sip Avenue in the monsoon and rain and wind. Thank you for doing so. And those online. So can I get a show of hands in person and then reactions online of who has heard of EAB Navigate? Okay, that is good. I'm going to hope that online we have lots of reactions. So I know it's something that we've talked about at a lot of different town halls, cabinet meetings, PEC meetings, EMC. A lot of you were involved in the selection, but this is really the first time that we're discussing it at length in a lot of detail. But I will preface all of this by saying Gretchen and I do not have all of the answers. We are still learning every single time we meet with them. But this is just to give you sort of an overview, and I would venture to guess that EAB Navigate will touch every single person who works at this college. So even if you're thinking, well, I'm going to listen, but it probably doesn't apply to me, I guarantee it applies to you. So please have an open mind and do listen to the recording if you are not able to fully engage, because this is a lot of good information. So EAB Navigate, it's a comprehensive student success platform. Why are we doing this? We are doing this because one of our Achilles heels in the way we support students, we do so many things well here. We have so many things going great in our student success work, but we do not have one platform that sort of brings it all together, that is the one source of truth, source of information, source of student supports for our college. So we've known that this is a gap for years. For years, we've known that we didn't have this. And then it was sort of a sequence of events between ATD and our work with our coaches and then launching Hudson Scholars. The one thing we were really missing is this platform. So with the support of the cabinet and the board, we invested in EAB Navigate, but it was a process. So basically what we're trying to accomplish is streamlining the student experience. And I want to make sure we also understand the impact on staff. So yes, students are number one. It's all about the student experience, but it's really important that we had a platform that our staff would engage in and really embrace, staff and faculty especially. Consolidating our technology. Now we have, so many Calendly accounts. We've got Mongoose texting. We've got the Ocelot chatbot. We've got all these different things in technology, Airtable and Smart Sheets and Laserfiche and all these things. So we're trying to really consolidate as much as we can our technology. And then also easy access to information. So if you're a faculty member, you probably want more information about students. Maybe you don't even realize there's information that would be helpful to you. So easy access where it's a one-stop shop to go there to find out how is a student doing, what supports are they getting, what is their story, how can I help them, do my progress review, see what the outcome has been, and then it'll really encompass all care units. So a care unit is really these departments on campus where you would refer students. So I'm going to refer a student to tutoring. I'm going to refer them to mental health counseling. I'm going to refer them to Hudson Helps. I'm going to refer them to the little library. So all these care units are really consolidated in one platform so that students are getting the referrals and also the follow-up that they need. And then also being able to customize what you need when you need it. So an advisor in Gretchen's area needs very different information than what a faculty member needs. A coordinator needs different information than what a faculty member needs. So each member of our community will have access to the information that's relevant for them to do their job. So how did we land on EAB? Someone is asking to annotate. I'm going to approve that. I guess that's okay. Sure. I need to advance, please. Oh, the clicker. I know sometimes you got to point it at all different places. So we knew we needed this tool, right? We knew we needed this platform. So our ATD coaches introduced us, thank you, to CampusWorks, which is sort of a consultant. They've consulted with us on a lot of different issues that we're having at the college to recommend software and technology. I'm not going to go into all of that. For this, they introduced us to 3 different platforms: Ellucian CRM Advise, EAB Navigate, and Civitas. And a group of people, this is probably not even inclusive of all the people that were involved in the decision making, met several times to review the vendors, see the demos, ask the questions, and then ultimately we decided on EAB Navigate. We went through of course, the procurement process and all of that, and that is where we landed. So it was really an inclusive process with all the voices that we needed at the table to make sure we chose the tool that was correct, that was right for our students, our community, our staff, and faculty. I don't know how you just did that, Willie, because now it's not going again. There we go. So before I turn it over to Gretchen, who is really the brains behind this operation, let me introduce you to our core team and then the engagement teams that we are forming. And again, this is a college-wide process. So our core team, we meet pretty regularly, either in smaller groups or with the EAB contact that we have. I serve as the executive sponsor, which basically means I'm making sure that cabinet is aware of what's happening and any big decisions that need to be made. I'm sort of the liaison to that. So it's like a fancy title that really, the real work, and I cannot overstate this, is being done by the program owner, who also wears several hats as the application and content administrator, which is Gretchen Schulthes. And this is a Herculean task. If you have ever been involved in a software implementation at another school or this school, it's Herculean, the amount of work and attention to detail and keeping things moving. So she is amazing, and that's no secret to all of you. You'll see that when she demos the program. Technical leaders, Tricia and Bill, are instrumental in making sure all of our data gets into the system, all of the connections with colleague, and making sure that the data is correct and up to date. They have been amazing. And then our faculty champions, I don't know if they're on the line, Karen Hosick and Nadia Headley. Really appreciate them, not just participating, but like actively participating. Because you could call somebody a faculty champion and they show up to meetings, but they are actively participating, asking questions, giving their input. And so they're really representing the faculty, but there will be many more opportunities for more faculty to get involved. We're going to be forming 3 engagement teams. We don't have to worry about the 4th one on the right, academic planning. Workflow and training. So this is all about, how do students set appointments? What types of appointments do they set? The workflows, and just making sure that we have the processes in place for students and staff. Insight and assessments. This is all about the analytics and the reporting and decisions for evaluating outcomes. We had a meeting yesterday with John and John about this, and so that's really represented by the academic affairs, advising, and probably institutional research. And then content and communication is a real heavy lift. This is all about what are students seeing? What do the emails say? What do the texts say? What are we saying? When are we saying it? That's a really huge part. So if you are interested in participating in any of these engagement teams, we will have an opportunity for you to raise your hand for that later on. So without further ado, we really want to show you the platform and show you what it means for you, your teams, our students. So again, Gretchen, our program owner, I bow to her every day on how she's getting us through this. It's amazing. The organizational skills, the leadership skills, the project management skills. We're lucky to have her. So there you go.
All right. Am I doing? Is it? Okay, there we go. Really instilling confidence in you right now. All right, so as Lisa shared, there's so many different things that go into EAB Navigate, and so I'll just kind of touch on some of these because I think, as Lisa alluded to, this is going to touch a whole bunch of different things across the campus. So I think some of the things that I'll really highlight that I'm really excited about. So with kind of 1 and 2, that's a little bit of what Lisa shared in terms of using data in order to inform kind of our approaches with student success work. So one is kind of, we can see information that's happened over time. One of the great things about EAB is that it pulls in a lot of our historical data, and it kind of takes that and it will help us kind of like show trends in what has happened. So we get some fancy little bar graphs and things like that that will be in there. I think one of the pieces that I'll point to specifically is number 2, which is predictive analytics. So this was some of the conversation that we had engaged with our institutional research and planning folks yesterday. One of the cool things, and you can see on there if you can have 20/20 vision, is that it says success markers. And one of the really cool parts about this is that it's actually, we can specifically tailor this to certain programs. So I'll give us kind of use case. So we recognize that we have a large population of pre-nursing students. This aligns with some of our work with ATD implementation groups. So maybe we recognize that, hey, for that medical science pre-professional pre-nursing group, those students really should be getting a B or better in Bio 111. And when they don't, that's an indicator that they're going to need some additional level of support. So we can indicate that as this particular success marker for those population of students, and that will and the program would essentially flag it when students don't meet that kind of indicator of success. And so that kind of helps us identify students who might need some more wraparound services, who might benefit from tutoring, who might benefit for some additional outreach from that department, who may benefit from additional kind of career support in terms of evaluating other career options. So all of these different things kind of tie in and will be additional kind of data to help the individuals who work with students support them more effectively. So in addition to kind of the 3 and 4 on there, the population health analytics and the SSMS activity analytics, I won't dig into those too much, but I will say that EAB's kind of philosophy is a population health model. So what they do is they kind of look at, of the population of students at the institution, who are those students who are very low risk. They may need lower levels of supports, and it really focuses some more interventions on students who may need more aggressive supports and interventions, and those students who are maybe perhaps in the medium, and they will be successful regardless, but we can still kind of bump them up to a lower level of needed support. With strategic care, we have the SMART student profile. We'll actually dig into that in a little bit, so I won't kind of dig into that too much. Campaign management, as Lisa shared, one of the great parts about this is there will be a rather comprehensive way to reach out to students using something called campaigns. So we can identify particular student profiles. So we can say, I'm really interested in first semester students who have already changed their major. And maybe what we do is we send an outreach to them and say, hey, you might be really a good candidate to take that focus 2 again. Maybe that would be helpful in you in trying to figure out what your career goals might be. We could also do something where maybe it's students that have more than 55 credits, but are still not close to graduating. We could kind of reach out to them and say, hey, you might want to speak to an advisor. And we can do particular communications around those more strategic groups. Progress reports, we'll drill into that a little bit later, but that's similar to kind of some of the initiatives you've seen with Hudson Scholars. And then lastly, the Coordinated Care Network. Similarly to progress reports, that's kind of encompassing a lot of those kind of old school retention alert, and then also progress reports, things that you've seen kind of again through Hudson Scholars and other specific departments on campus. All right. There we go. Multimodal communication. This is one of the things that's most exciting. So right now, as Lisa shared, we use Mongoose for texting, we email students, we sometimes use other different tools to reach out to large groups of students. One of the nice things is in one platform, you would be able to see the communications that student has gotten, emails from financial aid or text messages from advisement, or maybe they've gotten flagged for something by a faculty member. All of that would kind of be in one singular screen. So the individuals will know. So when a student comes in and says, hey, I got this email from financial aid, I think it might be spam. We can say, no, actually, we see that in your profile, that's correct. So it helps us have a more comprehensive view. And by us, I mean not only advisement, but every individual across campus who has access to this information, a more holistic view of what's going on with that student. Appointment scheduling. I have been a huge proponent of Calendly since day one, and I think it's crossed over many areas on campus. And I think we've realized too that, again, it's just another tool that we're using in our very wide portfolio of tools, but actually appointment scheduling is in here, and it actually has some bonuses on top of that. One of the things we run into now is appointment availability. Sometimes students don't know how to reschedule appointments, and they will schedule 2, 3, 4 appointments rather than rescheduling their appointment. What we could actually do is lock it down, so once a student has one appointment, they have to reschedule that appointment before scheduling a new one. So that'll increase the availability of our staff to better serve students because there's not that kind of excess static or noise around appointments. Milestone guidance, again, we can really nudge students a little bit more aggressively in terms of what they need to do in order to be successful, particularly around things like completing financial aid paperwork. We can say, hey, you have this many days to do this, or you have these number of tasks to do. So we can really be a little bit more directive. There's also some elements for number 12 on major selection guidance. Although we didn't delve into the academic planning module, there is some information within here related to major exploration. So we're still kind of evaluating how that works with our current kind of tools and technologies that we have like MC, but there is some availability for that within here. All right, so here's some cool screenshots, which I think will give you a pretty clear idea of what this might look like. So on here, you'll see this is what essentially a student profile looks like. So on here, and I think, nope, my mouse doesn't go on there. Does this trigger? Actually, that won't work for the people online, will it? Okay, thanks. But on here, you can kind of see this is an overview of an individual student, and I'll show you kind of another view a little bit more within our kind of own test environment. But it shows you a kind of snapshot of information. So it would show, for instance, the number of courses that a student has gotten a D or an F in. So as an advisor, as someone working with a student, I can look and see if I'm seeing a double-digit number there, that's already kind of an immediate flag of, hey, this is somebody who's had... Let's hope we don't lose power. Knock on some wood. But basically, if I'm already seeing some data there, I'm like, okay, my attention is already raised that, hey, I may need to dig in a little bit into some of their academic history. It also shows repeated courses. If I'm seeing some of these trends on here, I can say, I need to dig in a little bit more into students' information. It'll also show withdrawn courses. It'll show missed success markers. So again, like I shared with that kind of pre-nursing student example, if they have not achieved that milestone that we're thinking is important, it'll kind of flag that and say, hey, this student may need additional supports. It also pulls in that GPA, and it'll also pull in some things like enrollment. You can kind of see some other examples of those success markers on there. So it'll say, for instance, this student looks like is a science student. So it'll kind of pull some of those things. So maybe we have a student in computer science. It might be looking for how that student is doing in those early math classes as an indicator. So it's an opportunity to kind of collaborate with the academic areas and kind of identify what are those some kind of key milestone things. And if we think about kind of guided pathways, what are some of those kind of key like indicators early on that are going to help us intervene with students more effectively? All right. So with this, I am actually going to pull up. We actually have a few folks today, myself included, to talk a little bit about some of their experience with EAB and other roles. So one of my academic counselors conveniently also previously worked at Montclair State University. So friends, if you wouldn't mind coming up, I'll have him just share a little bit about working in his role as a success coach, what using EAB was like, and then we have a few other kind of guest people to jump in. So friends, I'll pass it off to you. Just as a bit of framing. Okay. And as a bit of framing, just a little bit about EAB, how it influenced your work, and if while you've been here, if there's any things that you're just like, man, I really wish that I had X, Y, Z.
All right. Hello, everyone. Happy Wednesday. So as Gretchen said, I used to work at Montclair as a success coach for about a year. In my role, I'm mostly focused on a mixture of academic advising, a little bit of data collection, as well as mass outreach to students. So I kind of got to use a lot of the different functions that EAB Navigate had to offer. So I know that we're going to be talking a little bit more about progress reports in the next slide, but I was kind of like the progress report guru, I guess that's what they called me, because I would make all of the campaigns to reach out to specific students who were in need and were at risk, and we would see the progress reports that faculty members would send to them, and that we would want to reach out to and talk to them a little bit more to make sure we're addressing all of their academic concerns. With academic advising, I would write a lot of appointment summaries, which we'll talk a little bit about as well in the upcoming slides, which was something that was great because it gave access to not just advisors, but to other staff and faculty across campus, being able to kind of see what we talked about, making sure that they're being supported and seeing if there's anything that additional support would be needed from different staff members. So yeah, I think that's kind of like a good general summary of what I did. So. Yeah. All right. All right. Cool. All right. So the slide will come up in a second. Hopefully. I'm not great with technology, guys. So when the slide, oh, there we go. When it comes up, as I said before, we're going to talk a little bit more about progress reports. So the beauty of Navigate is that we can get feedback from faculty members talking about different students' performances in their class. Factors such as their grades, absences, or any other risk factors that they might have mentioned in the progress reports, we will be able to see. And based on that feedback, we would be able to kind of intervene as support staff to make sure that they're getting all the necessary support that they need to be able to succeed, and so that we're able to reduce the amount of students who are at risk. So when I was at Montclair, for example, there might be an alert that's saying that a student is struggling in a math class and there were excessive absences. What I would do is that I would kind of create a campaign for those students that were in need, have them set up appointments with me so that we can have discussions as to what's going on. So, okay, why are you absent from class? Okay, this happened in my life. Were you able to talk to your professor about it? No. Okay, so you should probably talk to your professor about it. Or do you think that tutoring might be a good resource for you because you're struggling with these concepts in your math class? So things like that, just to make sure that we're able to address the concerns as well as be able to refer them to other on-campus partners as well. And then check in.
That's perfect.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much. And yeah, I think one of the things I'll kind of jump off of what Francis just said. I think with campaigns, one of the really great things is we collect data on that. So we can initiate a campaign to a particular group of students, and then we can see how many of those students actually opened up that email that was sent out. How many students actually scheduled an appointment as a result of that outreach. So I think that's really helpful because right now we don't necessarily have all of that data on the work that we're doing. And so this will really help us identify what best practices are we already using, or what kind of practices do we potentially need to modify as a result in order to get more effective communication with students. So as Fran said, we have progress reports that are an element of this. And then we also have what are called like alerts or referrals. The languaging may change, but basically these are kind of flags. So a faculty member or another individual on campus could basically raise an alert on a student and say, hey, I think this student may need some additional support. So they could basically raise a flag and say, hey, you know what, I think this student should go speak to someone in career services. And then that information would be shared with career services, and that they would be able to reach out to that student, follow up. Additionally, we can also kind of raise, and this is why the language may change, alerts or kind of flags on positive things. We can flag and say, hey, this student is doing great and they deserve kudos. And we can actually like curate an email that goes to the student that says, hey, your professor said that you're doing fantastic in your class. Keep it up. And that's something I think that we've developed as best practices in our Hudson Scholars program and that we would want to continue with. Because I think we want to make sure that these are not always negative things, but can basically just be feedback to the student on how they're doing holistically. And I will say, and I'll talk a little bit about this later, but it's really designed to be intentionally easy for the faculty to fill out. I think that's always been one of our driving forces with some of the stuff that we've developed for Hudson Scholars. And I think EAB really shows what that looks like because you can kind of see that red and green. It basically makes it easier for the faculty member to say, is this student at risk? And although I don't think anyone has fantastic enough eyesight to read those comments at the bottom, it basically says, if you leave it blank, do you want it to say that this student is not at risk? So if you're a faculty member and you're filling it out, you can just basically flag those students that are at risk of failing the course, and the ones that are not filled in are submitted not being at risk. So it means it's just less clicks. And even though it's something simple like that, for a faculty member that has potentially a number of courses, that will help streamline kind of the data collection in a meaningful way. So right now we're kind of building this out. As Lisa said, this is a behemoth amount of work. So we're kind of drilling into what this might look like. But right now, this is some of the work that's going on, and we're hoping can just really create a better student experience by making sure that when a support area is referring a student to that other department, that there's actually follow through, and both on the student and that department's part. So it's really just going to increase the amount of support that students are getting. So with that, I'm going to transition to our kind of second person. So Jen, if you wouldn't mind coming up. I'm going to introduce Jen, who works here with us as our Director of Transfer Pathways, but previously was at one of our local institutions at NJCU as an EOF counselor. So if you wouldn't mind talking about.
Of course. Hi, everyone. I'm like super excited about this platform. I'm like, yes, it's going to be great for the institution. I worked with EAB for 3 years. I mean, and it was an amazing platform. We had faculty involved. We had the students involved. We had departments across campus involved. I mean, it's an amazing platform to work with. And for me specifically, when I was an EOF counselor at New Jersey City University, with those 3 years, I was able to make appointments for my students. If they had to see or speak to any faculty member, I made sure I made appointments for them because I know that some faculty members hosted office hours, which I thought was great. We were able to pop up a schedule on EAB and right there make the appointment with the student. And I thought that was amazing. Sometimes students need services right when you see them instead of waiting for it. And I think that that's what's great about EAB. We also involved other departments across campus, like mental health counseling. You know, if you had a student that needed the services, you were able to provide that right there and then for them. Specifically, reporting as well was tremendous. I feel like with our cohorts specifically, we were able to identify what students needed some more credits to graduate. And our goal is always to make sure our students are graduating. For transfer pathways specifically, the most important thing is with articulation agreements. We want to make sure that our students that are transferring over to the four-year degree colleges that we have agreements with, that they are passing their grades, that they understand the agreements, and what does that look like for them while they're here at the institution? How could I help them get there with EAB in regards to understanding their credits with the help of academic advisors, understanding why is it that they might not be able to get that C- in that specific course, and how does that translate to the four-year degree programs that we have agreements with. And also, I'm excited personally about EAB because of the majors. I will be able to use the platform to divide majors. We have many students in different majors and send out campaigns. When we are working with other institutions, when they want to come over and make presentations, specifically for the science degree programs or for nursing or for specific agreements, I would be able to make campaigns and outreach to these cohorts of students so that they're able to participate in our workshops, so they're able to participate in instant decision days, specifically targeting our freshmen, first semester cohorts, making sure that they understand the agreements that we have with other colleges and how important it is to receive these services as soon as they start classes, not waiting until their last year before graduation. So I'm an advocate for this platform. I think it's going to be amazing for the institution, for faculty, for other departments across campus, and I think it's going to be exceptional for us, and I'm super excited for it. So thank you.
feel like I need to, I don't know, pay you extra for that testimonial. Thank you. And I think a lot of the stuff that Jen just shared is really what we're hoping for. And I think as Lisa shared also in the beginning, this is not only going to be an advisement tool, this is everything across campus. And this is kind of one of the slides EAB shared with us, but I really wanted to kind of put this up here just so folks could see how this would impact different areas. I think some of the pieces that I really appreciate that Jen had talked about was the access to data in a way that can be meaningful. I even just, and we'll talk about this a little bit later when I kind of show some screenshots of information. But even recently, like this week, someone said, hey, can I have a list of all of the people in these courses so I can do outreach to them on this internship opportunity? And how that often looks is you need to put in an elution request to get that. And if you don't have access to business objects, you may need to get your supervisor to do that. And it's like, these are things that are just our own design to keep data secure, but it's preventing people from getting that information they need to make actionable steps towards student success. So what this might look like for EAB in terms of us as for senior academic leaders, they can have access to that higher level information and kind of how many people are using this. What kind of trends are we seeing? Are we seeing that this project that we did is actually yielding benefits in terms of retention and graduation outcomes? For deans and department coordinators, similarly with that idea, I can't count the number of times somebody has said, could you give me a list of students that are currently in our program? We want to do outreach for XYZ. Because I think, again, a lot of the reporting tools that we have are just not incredibly user-friendly. So this would enable department coordinators to easily get a list of the students in their majors. Maybe department coordinators or deans are saying, hey, I wonder, should we run another section of this course? They could look and see how many students in their program have 45 earned credits and are likely to be taking this final externship course. So they would have access to run that independently without needing to kind of go through any additional layers. For our professional advisors, ideally streamlining the daily workflow. One of the things I'll share is our staff don't have access to running those sorts of reports. So I will run reports kind of weekly and share them with them, but they don't necessarily have that up-to-date data on a daily basis of, here are my students that still have holds on their accounts and why they haven't registered. So giving more kind of democratic access to some of that data so that they can, again, make those timely interventions. For faculty, again, giving them more information. So oftentimes faculty that are working with students in their programs might want some additional information. They might want to know a little bit more about their student's academic background, particularly when doing faculty advisement. So this will give them a more holistic view of the student beyond just kind of that individual term or course-related content. For support areas, it'll help us work together more collaboratively. So I think I've met with different departments on campus and we're all collecting data in different ways. This will help us streamline it together so that we can actually look at the outcomes. I think that's one of the really key things is we all know that we're working very effectively, but sometimes it's very hard to actually articulate that in a way that's meaningful for assessment. So I think this will also help us with that. And again, for students, there is an app that comes along with this. It's also accessible on the computer as a website, but the goal is that it'll help students simplify their experience. We recognize there is always a kind of barrier to students saying, well, why do I need to do something else? We're hoping that this will be that one centralized spot where they can see how they schedule appointments, how they can find different resources across campus, and really make it student-friendly enough that this is something that is going to be a benefit to them to opt into. All right, so this is, once it changes. All right, so this is a really helpful overview, and I love this because I think this is kind of like a quick demo with all of the kind of appropriate student information removed of what this program looks like. So we actually have a test site that is currently in production. We're kind of working, I was actually just meeting with some folks from our elution side today to really kind of validate the data that's in here. So I picked a student that had a lot of information going on. So you can see that they struggled. They had 13 courses that they had gotten a D or an F in. They had 4 courses that they had repeated. And what's very cool is if you actually click on those little down triangles, it actually shows you all of those courses and the terms in which they enrolled in them. So as a kind of overall global view, this would be the first view that an academic advisor or a faculty advisor could peek at for a student. And I will name, there is permissions and kind of role differentiation that we will engage on. I'll speak a little bit about this in a little bit, but as a faculty member at another institution, I can't see all of these variables, so that it is going to be appropriate to who should see kind of what content. So it'll show that cumulative GPA, the number of total credits earned at the institution, that credit completion versus attempt. So that's often something that comes into play with things like academic standing. So all of this information, having this in one spot, this is information that typically if you were to look for this on LibertyLink self-service, or if you were trying to look for this in Colleague, it would be probably about 3 or 4 different screens to get all the information that's on this single screen. So in addition to that, we also see some student information. Again, it's all kind of obscured at this point, and we may not decide to move forward having all of this information on there, but this is just kind of what's templated there. One of my favorite parts about this is you'll see on the bottom right, that success team. So right now you can see that this student has one of my Hudson Scholars counselors, Andy, as their advisor. And what happens when you click on that envelope is either the student or whoever's looking at this profile could email Andy. And then underneath that, you'll see your fall 2022 instructors. So the student sees this student success team, and this actually goes back to, I think, something that was recommended years ago of having students know who their kind of support team was at the institution. That students will be able to see somewhere all of the people that are kind of on their team supporting them. So they have all of their instructors here for the term, so the student has across all of the different divisions who those people are. And what's nice is the faculty would also be able to see that. So they would be able to see, oh, this student is also in Professor Buckley's English 101 class. Why don't I chat with them? So they would have access to all of this information as well. And we're also looking to, where it says kind of under the advisor, also looking to, because our financial aid counselors are also assigned to students, putting their financial aid counselor there. Maybe that also looks like whatever kind of support areas are assigned, having that there. So when the student knows, hey, I need some support, they know exactly where to go and who their people are. Since I think very early on, one of the challenges has always been students say, I don't know who my advisor is. And so this makes it very clear without having to say, hey, you need to drill into 2 different screens to figure out who that person is or how to email them. So it makes it very transparent. So again, so that student knows very easily where to go to get help. So as we were talking about with reporting, I did kind of pull a quick screenshot of basically what this might look like. So I basically ran a report, and these are just a sample of variables that are in there. But I looked for pre-nursing students who had 45 or more credits and who were enrolled in this term. And I hid some of that important student information like their ID numbers and their names, but this is a cross-section of students who are actually enrolled. So I can pull, and maybe I'm somebody that's, let's say, on an ATD team, and I want to find all of those students, regardless of whether or not they're my advisee, and I want to do some outreach to them because clearly they have 45 or more college-level credits, but they're still in that medical science pre-professional pre-nursing. So maybe they need some additional support to figure out what it's going to take them to either get into the program or to graduate. And there's a whole number of variables that we could have here. We could actually put in their contact information, their cell phone number, their email, the attempted completion ratio, also their level of support. So again, kind of with those predictive analytics, if we identify that there's some students on here that have a very high level of support, maybe again, they need some recommendations to tutoring. So we can create campaigns. We could also basically save this. So let's say I am a faculty member, maybe in nursing and health sciences, and I want to save this. I don't have to run this report every single time. I can just kind of save it. And so all of this information would be available to be able to run these types of reports. So I'm going to switch hats for a second. So beyond kind of this work, I also am an instructor at Montclair. I've been teaching there for, gosh, about 4 years now. And so I've been using this. So kind of like Franz had said, he had used it as a success coach. I've used it as an undergraduate professor, instructor over there. I love it. And I think it's the first way I had been exposed to it. But again, there's some different things, like I can go into there and I can see all of the students in my class. In order to raise an alert, I can just click on their name and say, hey, the student needs some additional support. The progress reports are sent out by their provost over there, and they basically, I get a nice email, and I get a nice reminder email when I don't fill it out the first time, and it says, hey, we really need some additional information about how your students are doing. It's great to be able to see when students are taking my class for not the first time. I teach a research methods class over there. Many students need to take it again. And so that's helpful information for me as a faculty member to go in and say, oh, I can see that the student is withdrawn from a lot of courses. I can see that they withdrew from this course before, or I can see they're struggling in a lot of their courses in the program that I teach in. That's really helpful data for me as a faculty member to be able to use when I'm kind of thinking about, okay, how do I support my students? I will say it's also really helpful just to be able to have those quick nudges and kind of that example of you only have to check off the people that are struggling and you can leave the other ones blank, because when you teach a large class of 35 plus students, you don't have time to click yes and no for 35 people. So it's really easy to just say, hey, you know what, I know there's 3 students in my class, I'm going to click yes, and then all of the others are kind of okay. So some of those little things really are meaningful, especially when you're teaching 2, 3, 4, 5 sections of a course. I again, love it as an instructor, and I think based on all the things I've heard from folks that have used it as a student support individual, I'm more excited to even have this opportunity to have it over here. I will say as an instructor, I can't run reports. I can't see some of that student success data, but I feel like I'm given enough access that I'm able to kind of make supportive decisions for my students. So I think I'm very aware of some of those access things, so I think that'll be some decision making that we'll make as we go ahead over here. So this actually is just kind of a quick screenshot. Again, removed all the student information, but this is actually from my Montclair Navigate. I did hide my profile picture because those are on there, and it's an atrocious picture of me trying to like power walk across the Montclair campus in like June, and it was not flattering. So I saved you all from that and from this being recorded in posterity. But photos do show up in here as well, which is nice. So of students as well. So that's also helpful, because I think anytime you have a student's face, you're able to kind of connect both as an instructor and as someone working with a student, because sometimes on Zoom, you don't always make that kind of face connection. So I can see there all the classes that I'm teaching. I have a list of all the students in my classes, so I can just click on that little checkbox, and I can also then just put in an alert. The other nice thing is you can see at the bottom all those issued alerts. So that shows all the alerts that I've submitted. So one of the pieces of feedback I've heard from faculty early on here, and kind of what influenced some of our decision making around Hudson Scholars, is that faculty would submit alerts and they would go off into the ether, and no one would ever know what happened to them. And I see some nods in the audience saying exactly that. And I think that's not helpful, because sometimes action is taken, but there's just not always a clear mechanism of how to get that information back to the faculty member. So it's really nice that I can see kind of what's going on, and I can see if action has been taken, if things have been closed. So all of that data is there. So even though some of these were from last semester, I can still have access to all of the alerts that I've ever submitted. Same thing on the right-hand side. I can also issue an alert kind of from there for another reason. And then I do have some kind of other features over there, but I don't have reporting capabilities, because as an adjunct instructor, that's not really the most appropriate based on their permissions. All right, with that, I think this is back to Lisa.
So much info, right? But good stuff. So hopefully this has wet your whistle to be excited about the platform and what it can do for you. So what is next? So we still have a lot of decisions to make. There are a lot of permission decisions, who should see what types of appointments are students able to schedule. So there are tons of decisions. We will be reaching out to some of you, some of your departments that maybe have not been completely integrated into some of our current technologies. We're really going to urge you to be integrated into this. As an example, like tutoring, for example, making sure that that's in this platform, because that's such a common referral. So we will be reaching out to a lot of you. Stay tuned. Navigate Nuggets. We will be issuing, I'm not sure if it's going to be on a weekly basis, bi-weekly, inspired by Trisha's technology tips. We will be sending out Navigate Nuggets. So things to get excited about. Like, here's a screenshot, here's where we are, here's some progress on the launch. I am going to urge you, ask you, implore you to have an open mind, because a lot of things are going to change. The way we do things that we've been doing for years are going to change. The way we advise students, the way students make appointments, the way faculty submit. We're talking about, do we do midterm grades in here versus Liberty Link? Do we do, do we abandon some of the current ways we do things so that things are visible in EAB? Because we don't want you doing things twice, and we don't want advisors to have to look in systems twice. So have an open mind. If we're asking you to sort of change the way you do things, it's probably based on best practice, EAB recommendations, communications. They are amazing to work with, by the way. They are so organized, so knowledgeable. They have a whole shared, it's not a box, is it box? Where we have access to all of these materials. I mean, I really trust them when they say, hey, here's the best way to do this. I trust that it is. So we're going to ask you to have an open mind, but do ask questions and challenge us if something seems off. We're going to be forming those engagement teams. So those 3 teams, it was the workflow team, the communication team, and the data team. So if you're interested in participating in those, please do reach out. And that's coming in the next several weeks. We will have a soft launch in the spring. So in the spring, coming up, all students will be loaded into EAB Navigate, and we're starting off with 3 care units: financial aid, advisement, and Hudson Scholars. And one thing that Gretchen mentioned that I want to just share the benefit of, students, they don't have to tell their story 10 times in EAB Navigate. So they don't have to tell it to Mackenzie in advising, then tell it to Hital in financial aid, then tell it to Jason when they show up at North Hudson. Everyone will be able to look and see, okay, this student, I can tell they're having a challenge with blah, blah, blah. I don't need them to perform it for me again. So that's one of the huge benefits. So we're starting off with those 3 care units, and then we'll expand to others. We expect a full campus-wide launch, fingers crossed, if the stars align, in fall of 23. So a lot of work to be done. We welcome your input. And maybe you don't want to be on an engagement team, but you just have some feedback or questions. Use this QR code. We will send this out as well to say, hey, I would really love to be on the communications team or the data team, or here's something I thought of that I didn't hear you mention, you know, a watch out or a flashpoint, something like that. So with that, that ends our formal sort of presentation, and we will open it up to questions. I think the mic is on in the center there. And there are raised hands online, yes. So thank you for your attention. Start online. Hands? Oh, I thought I saw one during. Maybe they put them down? Oh, okay. Let's look at. All right, Bob Kahn.
Maybe I should unmute first. All right, I'll go first. I put it in the chat. Scheduling looks fabulous. Of course, it'll compete with other scheduling platforms. Does it have any support for launching virtual meetings? Did that come up?
Yes, so students can choose to either meet in person, have a virtual meeting, and basically you can pop your Zoom link in there. And so that would be communicated to the students. And similarly, like Calendly, there is also text and email reminder communication that is kind of encompassed within that. So yes, virtual meetings are supported.
Okay, thanks.
Doreen?
I have a question. How do you foresee this integrating with the care and concern form referral process?
Yeah.
Doreen, good question. This is one of those processes that we probably will need to examine because we are going to want that to integrate more with the different care units. And we've identified recently, so as a person who just recently submitted a care and concern form, I identified just some concerns about the care and concern form, that it wasn't really, the choices weren't really what I was looking for. So I think the referrals will be done likely inside of EAB, but that's one of our TBDs on how we integrate that with the care and concern form. So you, David, Denise, and others will definitely be involved in that conversation.
Okay. And my, I guess, second question is I know the person that was speaking before had said that this is a good way to refer students for mental health counseling. Does everyone have access to that, and how is confidentiality kind of looked at?
I can take that. And I think we're still, every school kind of determines it. I'll share just kind of an example and then I'll address your question. There was one school that had a really great temperature scale of like when things are kind of on a range of like 0 to 5, those are things that maybe are appropriate to put within Navigate, with a 10 being you should call 911. So thinking about like, what does that range look like for us? And I think what we're trying to figure out is for that middle range, maybe are there still things that are appropriate for some version of the care and concern form, or are there some things that maybe could shift into Navigate? There are permissions decisions that we will have around who can see what information. So again, as I shared as an instructor, there's certain information I can't see. Even with notes and some data, there's some information that we can't see. I recognize that with mental health and with some other areas, there are privacy concerns, so we do want to attend to that. But I think there may be some things that you could still refer out, and data would not need to be recorded other than like referral received, something like that. So there's different options there as to what we potentially land on. So we will definitely invite you to be part of those conversations.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you for that presentation. This looks amazing. Very excited about it. I just wanted to highlight from a CEWD perspective, a couple of different ways where we could engage with this platform. One is we work with students in credit-based programs, and we have student success coaches. So that's one. Second, we work with employers on internship programs and partnerships, mentoring, things like that, as another. And third is we are recently implemented the Elevate platform, which is an Ellucian product. So I don't know how that could potentially be integrated with EAB. So just wanted to throw those things out.
I can maybe speak to one just idea. So one of the things, for instance, I know you are championing so many programs within out of your area. So for instance, the students that are recently incarcerated or reentry, some of those apprenticeship programs, and yet it's not always apparent to staff that are working on the credit side who those students are. So there's also ways to categorize or tag students in a way so that when somebody is looking, we could be like, oh, this student is in one of these identified programs. They probably also have a support coach there. So there's also categories and tags that we can either apply or pull from a field and colleague that would help us better identify and probably collaborate and coordinate on some of those programs effectively. I know this data is pulled directly. It's kind of an overnight refresh of the information that's in colleague. It's probably above my pay grade / technology level to know how that coordinates with Elevate, but that is a good question that we can dig in more to.
Yeah, that sounds great, because we definitely would want to be part of that care team for the students when it's a program that we're involved in, and our student success coaches work with students.
Yeah, definitely. So I would imagine them being part of that kind of my success team. So when we have that list of identified students, as long as we know where that's pulled from, we could definitely have them identified on there.
Great, thanks.
Awesome.
Hi.
Hello.
Thank you, Gretchen, for the presentation, to you, to VP Lisa, and your staff here. Yes. Just quick question. The progress reports from Hudson Scholars will now be replaced with this, so we'll get one email, or we'll still get the multiple emails?
So this won't be a full rollout until fall of 23. So we're trialing different things out with different care units. So I'll be honest, I'm not going to commit to anything with a very broad audience right here, right now. But what I think we're looking at is figuring out at what point it makes sense to transition certain things over. I think I will be honest, just from my workflow, my kind of working understanding of things right now, the Hudson Scholars progress reports largely work for that population. But for our broader college population who are not Hudson Scholars, there is not kind of an equitable workflow that we are using. So I think honestly, in terms of my triaging kind of the college as a whole in terms of student success, I'm almost more focused on potentially trialing it out with those population that's not covered by Hudson Scholars. But again, the end goal would be you would get one email saying, progress reports are due for students in your classes. You would hop into here and you would see that kind of orange flag on the top saying submit your progress reports. So the goal is to kind of streamline it, and then also, as Lisa shared, not duplicating data that you may be inputting elsewhere. So
All right, thank you. And then the permissions for faculty will be reviewed in the spring, and then we'll get the final list at the end of spring?
So that's conversations we're digging into. Actually, I think we just scheduled a meeting for that next week. So again, we have Nadia and Karen on that. So they're going to be involved in conversations regarding that. And then we'll also kind of share that out. We're open to feedback. I think it's a very iterative process of figuring out if something's not working, maybe that does mean increasing access, or maybe that means revising it over time. So I anticipate that we'll be trialing things out. And I think we'll figure out as we kind of go what may be more appropriate for folks to have access to.
Okay, thank you. And again, great presentation. Thank you.
Yeah.
Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Hello, hello, hello. Oh, it's working. Hello, my name is Brian. Gretchen, I did have a few questions.
Go for it.
So one of my first concerns is registration. Would that be self-registration, or would that be by the school that would be emailed to you?
So actually, registration is not changing. So we actually did not purchase the academic planning portion of EAB because honestly, as we went through it, it didn't seem any better than what we were currently using. And there's always kind of a risk when you go through something like a third party or another kind of piece of software. If it doesn't sync, maybe somebody else takes that class, and we just weren't confident that it was going to give students a better experience when registering. So for registration and for kind of looking at your progress, you'll still do that in the same way that you do right now.
And my second concern is accessibility to communication with students. So we obviously have students that don't speak English.
Yep.
So will we have the platform in multiple languages? And not only if they're not able to read English, is it available to softwares like Adobe Acrobat where it reads out
It's okay, the screen reader, yep.
Yeah, like the screen reader.
Yeah, so actually someone had previously raised the question about the languages. The app itself, my understanding is that it does not. It's also viewable through a website, which I do believe would have the ability to kind of translate in the way that kind of our college website does, like using something like Google Translate. It's not perfect, but it is an option. I think one of the things that we're looking forward to, and I didn't even delve into this because I was trying not to overwhelm folks, but there is actually an intake survey. And I think I'm on a committee that works on our college application. One of the things we've been talking about and tossing around is asking students what their language that they speak at home is, because oftentimes we don't know that information. So students may prefer to receive content in a different language. So where possible, that could be something that we ask students up front, and then maybe that's a tag that we put on their account to say this student, where possible, prefers to receive content in this language, and that might help us tailor communications that we send out to that students in that language where available. So I think we're actually hoping, so while some of the technology pieces may not natively be available in those other languages, we're hoping that that may help us as an institution provide more relevant content in the appropriate language to students. In terms of accessibility, I actually don't have that answer for you, but I will bring that to kind of my next meeting and see if I can get any details on that, because I think that is something that we are committed to. I will be honest, this piece of software is kind of like the Rolls Royce of student support systems. So I have a feeling that they have probably dug into that, but I'll try to find out some more information on that.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
We have a question online in the chat. Will faculty be required to input information regularly, and will this be linked to the attendance information faculty put in the deliberately link?
So that's sort of one of those decision-making things that we need to address. But I would say the short answer is yes, that we want as much information as possible in Navigate, because that's the only way that advisors will be able to have the full picture of the student to support them. So I think we need to determine, can attendance be directly, we're not going to ask you to do it in two places. I can almost guarantee that. But so we're going to need to determine where's the best place to enter it so that we have what we need in EAB. But I would say, yes, we would expect faculty to access the platform often. I mean, I was in it yesterday. It pulls up your roster right away. I mean, it's so great. I mean, it's just you're going to want to access it, we hope, because of everything available. Was there a second part of that question?
Will this be linked to the attendance information faculty put in delivered link?
So I think that we don't know that yet, right? We don't know that yet. Next meeting with Tricia and Bill, our technology champions, we will get more insight into that.
Next question in the chat. This centralized CMS sounds great on the credit side. Will CEWD have access to this platform, and is it customizable to the type of services the division provides?
So I think as of right now, we haven't established kind of the use case for CEWD. I think because, again, we're still kind of starting with those initial care units. I think as with anything, we want to start small and expand it intentionally. So I think that's not off the table. And I think we want to be mindful, because I think the worst case implementation scenario of anything is we roll it out to everyone and it doesn't work and people say it doesn't work. So I think we want to be very thoughtful. And so we're starting with just a few individual care units. But I think, as we even spoke when Lori had brought up that idea about just even that kind of crossover population, I think there's definitely some scenarios in which we could have that be meaningful. And then was there another part of that question?
Will CEWD have access to this platform?
Yeah, so I think, I mean, again, I think I would imagine it probably most recent, like the first type of access being with those crossover students, and perhaps some scenario with that, but it's not off the table for down the road.
Another feature, and if you mentioned it, Gretchen, I had zoned out. One of the things I was really excited about is it would tell us the last time a student logged into the LMS, which I don't know if there's many success markers that are more effective than that, knowing that they've accessed Canvas and actually, especially online students. So that's one of those things that we really don't have visibility into now.
Lauren has her hand raised.
Hi, so I also want to thank you for the presentation. It sounds like this is a really exciting software, has a lot to offer. And it still sounds obviously like there's a lot of things to be worked out, like permissions, integrations, confidentiality, and it's the engagement teams that are going to be doing that work. Could you talk a little bit more about what those engagement teams are? Again, I know you mentioned what the 3 groups are, and then a little bit more specifically about who you're going to be recruiting for each one. Is it going to be a mix of volunteers and reaching out to specific individuals? Just more about what that process is going to look like, if you can. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So the first one is workflow and training. So this is all about the decision making around appointments, early experts of the platform. So this is supposed to be academic advising leads, technology, and success coaches. So it'll be both, Lauren. I would say it's going to be volunteers, because we want people who want to be involved, obviously. And then there's going to be, if we see a gap where we say, oh my gosh, we don't have any faculty on this engagement team, we're going to reach out and ask for faculty. So the first one is the workflow and training. So that's sort of just decisions on what happens if and when students do this, or faculty or staff do this. And then helping us train others. That's a big part of this. So if you're on one of these engagement teams, it's expected that you would sort of become the expert, that a faculty member could come to you and say, I don't remember how to do this progress report, or I don't remember what happens, how am I supposed to use these red and green buttons. The insight and assessment, this would really be more about the analytics. And then basically, assessing the outcomes of the software and the system. So I would expect this will be heavily populated by John Scanlon and team, with academic advising, of course. And then the content and communications is really about how we're reaching out to students, those campaigns. When are we reaching out? What are we saying? What are we asking students to do? So there's decisions about that. And really, I think a big piece of this is the language that we're using to communicate with students. So the way I would send an email to yours is probably very different than an email I would send to a student. So really understanding, and that's going to be, I would think, a student-heavy group. They'll all have students on them, but that one, I think especially, we want to hear from students. Like, what do you want to know? What format do you want to hear it in? How often do you want to hear? And then I'll ask Gretchen to add anything I may have missed about that.
So I think one of the cool pieces that I didn't really touch on here is that an arm of EAB's work is also like as a research institution, like a research element. So they actually have a lot of research that they've done in terms of best practices. Well, and I've honestly been a fan of some of their like research stuff for years, and there's a lot of like help documents and things to help us make these decisions. One of my favorite is like higher ed lingo, and it literally has kind of teams sit together with a list of kind of words and figure out how do we put these and name what first generation student means, what financial aid satisfactory academic progress means in language that students will understand. And it really challenges us to have like a 6th grade reading level for that content. So I think, as Lisa shared, there's also a lot of guidance that EAB provides and a lot of kind of work documents that we have to kind of support this work.
Great, thank you.
Great presentation, Gretchen and Lisa. My question is, a lot of times, mainly when the semester begins, after a few weeks, students stop attending class, and the professors try to reach out to the students, and sometimes they can and sometimes they can't, so then they submit a care or concern form. Will this software be able to identify the students that have missed, say, 2 classes, and then in addition to the faculty trying to contact them, will there be a list generated where maybe advisement can reach out to them? Because there were a lot of times I remember, you know, as a teacher, we would try to reach out to the students who stopped attending. It happens a lot in developmental education. And there are times we are able to reach the student, but there are many times that we can't. So is there going to be a process in place where there'll be an extra line of support in trying to reach these students?
Great question. So I think, as with any sort of technology, I feel like this is the standard answer. It's only as good as the information we put into it. So one of the things I will say is, if we are opting later down the road to use this for attendance, that is something that could be generated. I think I remember from retention alerts of yesteryear, when they've tried it here, they ended up not doing it because the data that was being inputted was flagging a lot of students unnecessarily. So I think a lot of that is going to be communication to the campus community about inputting correct data, et cetera. However, I was literally just building out some of the progress report logic earlier this week. And one of the things that was identified was excessive absences. So maybe if we send a progress report in week 2, even though that feels early, maybe that will help us identify some of those students who've never showed up.
That's a good idea.
And that's kind of some of the logic around some of what we've been trialing out with Hudson Scholars. We sent out very early progress reports in like week 2 or 3, and a lot of faculty said, it's too early, I don't have data. And I responded back to many of them and said, but if you have not met this student yet, that's the data that we need. Because it's so early that it's still early enough that they could drop that class before having to withdraw. So exactly. I think that's, so part of it is communicating and making sure that we're providing rationale to faculty in a timeline that's going to be effective. Because I think, as you shared, oftentimes faculty are trying, but without as much support. And I think, as Lisa shared as well, with that connection to the LMS, if we're able to identify students that have never logged into the LMS, send them a communication right prior to that drop deadline, they'll be able to drop that class without the financial implication or the academic implication.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
A few more questions.
Go for it. You have great ones, so keep it up.
So I missed a few details.
Yeah.
Will there be an orientation or training for students and staff in spring?
Yes, and like with an asterisk. So we're rolling it out to different populations of students. I think one of the things that's first on our list to roll out is appointments. So yes, there's going to be trainings, and I think we're going to start with our a lot of our staff in spring, and then also to roll it out to students over time. I think we really want to have our big push in fall with incoming students, but basically what students will really need to know is kind of how to navigate around, and then mostly that first thing is going to be how to schedule an appointment. So yes, there will be trainings.
And then if anyone were to need help, would there be a virtual help desk or an in-person office or some of the sort?
Really good questions. So I think we would have to figure, honestly, I would imagine that because this is an institutional software, we would team up with our IT colleagues to make sure that they're well versed in all of this kind of content. But basically what I've seen as best practices at other institutions is that there are help videos that we'll produce and build out an element of our website to really show for faculty kind of what some of those frequently asked questions and some of the how-to things on there. For staff, what are some of those, and for students especially, like how do they access some of those frequently kind of like how to schedule an appointment, like we can do walkthroughs like that. So I would anticipate that kind of being a proactive element. Reactive likely partnering with IT to make sure that they're well versed in this, to be able to support students that may have issues or questions. And then there will be training likely from people on campus that will host, and then we can also record and have it in perpetuity.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Appreciate you letting us take over a town hall. We'll turn it back over to you if you have any closing comments.
Really phenomenal. So much work has gone into this. I was just reflecting on how far we've come in our student success journey. And this is real, and it's going to have a huge impact, I know. And also, like everything, it takes a village. But this is going to be wonderful. Lisa and Gretchen and everyone who spoke, thank you. And thank you to all who have been involved to date. And I think eventually we'll all be involved. So stay tuned. And I think it's something we can all be proud of. We have just a few more minutes. So I'm happy to open this to questions, comments, announcements, celebrations. Okay, I see two hands here. Go, Kathleen, and then Tejal.
Hello, hello. On behalf of Professor Hosick, Karen Hosick, on Tuesday, December 6th, from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m., we are hosting hands-only CPR and AED on the second floor of the Student Center. So in the spirit of the culture of care of Hudson, come and learn how to take care of each other. And we will have some other opportunities in the spring. I was just speaking to Joe about Union City High School. Their health occupations students will be coming to North Hudson campus to help with Stop the Bleed. So while we cannot right now host an entire first aid course, we will begin hosting pieces of it. And Stop the Bleed is a national campaign on how to stop hemorrhage. So you're going to save a life by knowing this. That's in the spring, but this Tuesday, hands-only CPR.
Fantastic. Thank you, Kathleen. Tejal?
Hi, I'm a little short, guys, so. Grand Rising, happy holidays, everyone. On behalf of the Education Opportunity Fund program, on November 18th, 2022, the EOF program, along with collaborating with other EOF programs here at St. Peter's University and JCU, we were all transported together to the College of New Jersey to celebrate our first in-person ASE&J Professional Scholar Conference since the pandemic. It's our first one in person. As our last ASE&J conference was in person in fall of 2019 at William Patterson University. For the last 20 years, the Education Opportunity Fund Professional Association of New Jersey, EOFP&J, along with the Alliance of EOF Students of the ESA&J of New Jersey, have brought this conference hosted this year at TCNJ, but previously we usually have it at a college or institution in the state of New Jersey. This year, the College of New Jersey's president in Ewing, New Jersey, we were greeted by their president, which was Dr. Catherine Foster. With that, we were successfully able to bring our EOF staff as long as, sorry guys, as well as our 5 EOF academic achievers to the College of New Jersey, which was filled with tons of information, excellent workshops, empowering them, and being able to network with tons of EOF scholars throughout the state of New Jersey and other institutions, which is our goal constantly, and with collaboration. Our theme this year was making moves and rising to action with promoting and having our scholars throughout the state of New Jersey, as well as ours here at HCCC, to be leaders of change. Our scholars were reminded by this quote during the conference, which is as such: with the perseverance you and your EOF family have faced, you have proved you can make the action of enacting change and becoming future EOF leaders. That is our constant goal of EOF. So thank you so much. This is our update for this month. Thank you. Happy holidays.
Thank you, Tejal. That's great. Yeah. Royal.
Good afternoon, everyone. Dr. Reba, everyone in their respectful places. Certainly the presentation by Dr. D and Dr. Gretchen was phenomenal. Thank you so much. But on behalf, and I'm happy to share out with the college community, on behalf of Professor Lester McCrae and Miss Maria Lita Sarmiento. She's the alumni manager. So as of November 16, 2022, the Alumni Association has a newfound officers and executive board members. And if you just give me 3 seconds, not even 3, maybe 5 seconds to run those names down and their leadership. So the positions as it pertains to vice president, well, for the president first is Latrenda Ross, and she is an alumni here. Vice president, that'd be myself. Yay! Secretary, Donetta Smith. Treasurer, Idalise Rosario, and Andreas Pignotti. I hope I'm pronouncing that last name correctly. Forgive me, Andreas. Board of Directors, there need to be at least 5, and we're looking at 1. Yuris Pujols, Ibrahim Mustafa, Sandra Aviles, Christine Bell, Diego Vila, Sharon Daughtry, Professor Sharon Daughtry, Miss Maria Lita Sarmiento, and Professor Lester McCrae. And so we are very excited in terms of Alumni Association, and some yet still didn't know that we had an Alumni Association. And so if you want to be a part of the alumni, if you can let your students know also for faculty, they only need at least 30 credits to become a member. And so all of the help is needed, and we certainly appreciate you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Royal. That's great. Yes, Pam. What, they can't hear you. No, you need to so that the folks online can hear.
Okay, I'll be very short and sweet. I cannot speak long because of my throat problem. I'll start coughing, and I can assure you, I don't have COVID, I don't have flu. I tested negative. So just to announce, you already saw the announcements. Our learning community day will be held tomorrow from 2 to 3, and you will see the learning community students work. Learning community, we started 30 plus years ago, but initially we started to enhance and to accelerate the remedial students. But as years progressed, we offered to our college level students too. So please, please, please try to attend this event. This is a virtual event. Try to attend this event and encourage our learning community students and see that how beautifully they work there. They will show their work. They will present their whole year's work practically in one poster. So please attend that. Thank you.
Thank you, Pam. Joe?
Hello, everyone. So, as many of you know, at the November board meeting, the North Hudson cafeteria was approved by the board, and was so excited. I attended a kickoff meeting yesterday with Mass Construction and some other people, and we're looking at, over the Christmas or the holiday break, probably beginning construction on the cafeteria. I don't have the exact date yet. When we find out the exact information, of course, I'll pass it on to everyone, but we're so excited. And one other thing, I might be reaching out to some of you. I'm thinking about starting an advisory board at the North Hudson campus to include members of the HCC community, but also members at the North Hudson area. So I'll keep you posted on that.
Thank you, Joe. That's great. And, you know, let me also comment, that cafe is going to be phenomenal. It's really going to be beautiful and similar in its offerings to Libby's Home Kitchen. That's right, Libby's Home Kitchen. I've only been away for a few days. But also, I'm just happy to tell you, work has continued to progress on both of our terrace projects, the 6th floor terrace in the Gabriel Library and the 7th floor terrace at the North Hudson campus. Both have had glass barriers installed all the way around the periphery of each to provide some added sense of safety. I mean, they're already meet code, but this gives you a sense of added safety, and yet you can see. It doesn't block your sight on those panoramic views from both. We have now ordered, or we're about to order, we've selected and we will be ordering permanent furniture that will go onto both of those terraces that will be 12-month furniture, and then we're opening those so that anybody can use them at any time either building is open. So students, whoever, can enjoy those views and those terraces, and they won't be under lock and key for just a special event. And so I think all that should be in place sometime later next spring, which is really great. Okay, others?
Veronica has her hand raised.
Veronica Gerasimo?
Yes.
Veronica G?
Hi everyone.
Hello.
So we are finishing out the semester strong. Shout out to Brian asking amazing questions representing the Student Government Association.
Yes.
Yes. Brian's a great one. We got a lot of great ones. SGA is holding a town hall meeting today for students at the North Hudson campus, and they are finishing out the semester with 2 Winterfest. If anybody attended the SGA Winterfest last year, it was a hit, and they're expanding out this semester to North Hudson campus as well. So this Friday from 2 to 6 at the Journal Square Student Center. This is open to everybody. Guests, bring your children, little ones, family, friends, ugly sweater contest, karaoke, giveaways, lots of fun stuff, fun crafts. So that's this Friday, 2 to 6 at Journal Square, and next Wednesday, 4 to 6 at North Hudson. Additionally, next Wednesday, we invite you, the flyer will be going out shortly, to our park lighting. If anybody remembers, pre-pandemic, we had a fantastic event with a fun 3, 2, 1 countdown where we lit up the park, and we're bringing that back. So that will be next Wednesday, 4:30 to 6:30 at the Culinary Plaza Park. And then lastly, for anybody who knows of any students that are graduating, we are having our December graduate receptions, December 12th and 13th in the Culinary Building. All information for graduates has been emailed to them, as well as is on the website. So if you have any students who are graduating, asking questions about graduating, direct them to the website. All they need to know is there. We'll be hosting graduate portraits next week available for them, and then the receptions the week following. So have a great rest of your day, everyone. Great rest of the semester. Winter is here, and winter break is almost here as well.
Thank you so much, Veronica. It's just amazing what you and your team do for our students. And that park lighting is going to be cool. If I'm not mistaken, those lights are going to be really formidable, like we've never seen before. Is that right, Veronica? They're really going to be special, right?
Yeah, it's gonna battle. I know Rockefeller they gave out the date for the. We're gonna battle it. We're gonna win.
So thank you. So come out and join us. That should be a really nice evening. Okay, others. Let me add just a quick update. Man, there's so many great things happening. The Hispanic Association of Colleges and Universities, or HACU, is like the largest organization in higher education focused on the needs and the success of Latino and Hispanic communities in all higher education sectors. A number of us, 9 of us, went to the national conference in San Diego, a couple of months ago, and we've become acquainted. We've had some exchanges, and we had a really, really wonderful meeting yesterday, virtual meeting, with several vice presidents at HACU and with some of our folks, talking about what we're doing in the DEI space, in the student success arena, and our desire to participate, go to the next level in terms of our participation in HACU, sharing what we do, but also learning from other best practice and helping advance the goals. HACU really is very effective and diligent in advocating legislation that includes financial aid and grant opportunities and legislation affecting our students and communities. So as a result of this, HACU is very interested in bringing visibility to what we're doing here in these areas. In fact, their November magazine came out yesterday, and there's a little piece about Hudson Scholars in that, and they want to do more of that. And they are planning, we have agreed that we're going to have an all-day event here on May 4th. I believe that's a Thursday, where President Antonio Flores, HACU president, along with a number of the HACU team members, And our community we are going to have something that they call Haku on the Road here at Hudson County Community College. And it will include community-wide luncheon for other colleges and universities interested in learning more about Haku coming here, as well as they want to fully engage with PAC Day and with our Student Success Dream Team, and want to be fully engaged in the college community. So stay tuned. This is a significant development, and it couldn't have been a more inspirational meeting. It was just really wonderful. And it's funny how things align, as I've shared with some people this morning. I think we have shared, I hope we've shared that, and if we haven't, shame on me, we were selected to present 3 best practice programs here at the National Bellwether Consortium. So each year, this is sponsored out of the Colleges of Alamo in San Antonio. Each year, colleges and universities submit what they consider to be best practice programs in 3 categories, 3 category areas. And a panel of judges, including CEOs of community colleges and others, higher education leaders, review all of these best practice programs, and they choose what they consider to be the top 10 in each of the 3 categories. And I'm forgetting the categories, but I think basically DEI, student success, government, or partnerships, continuing ed. So the top 10 programs in each category then are showcased at a national conference in San Antonio, in late February. And at this conference, I've been to this once, okay? At this conference, each presentation, each best practice program has a 1-hour presentation. So we can watch others and learn from them, and they can watch us. And then a panel of judges who remain anonymous, but who are watching all these presentations, chooses the national winner of the Bellwether Award in each of the 3 categories. This is a nationally pretty distinguished opportunity, and Bellwether awardees are asked to talk about their programs in the ensuing year in various venues. So we've been selected as the top 10 in all 3 categories. We have 3 programs. All 3, that's almost unheard of. There's one other college this year that's got 3. And so we're going to have 3 different teams going to San Antonio, one talking about Hudson Scholars, one talking about all of our DEI initiatives within our human resources and employee support areas, and one talking about our Gateway to Innovation program that's been funded by JP Morgan Chase and others through continuing education. We'll all be doing these presentations, and stay tuned. But to be a finalist is really very noteworthy. So now that I've given you that, and if I haven't before, you needed to know that, because this is a real point of pride. There's a heck of a lot of planning that goes into this in terms of planning for the presentations. We're actually going to be seeing if Governor Murphy will do a 2-minute video piece, and also Senator Booker. And we're really doing a lot of planning. We're really excited about it. So we're having this meeting with HACU, and they were telling us, oh, well, we have 3 offices nationwide, one in Washington, D.C., one in San Antonio, and one in California. And we shared the Bellwether thing. Well, their office is right where we're going to be for these Bellwether presentations. So they're inviting us to have dinner with them when we're down there doing that. And I'm sure they're going to be watching some of the presentations. So, folks, the work that you're doing is really good. And not in our eyes, just in our eyes, but in the eyes of others. And so we'll keep you informed about that as it unfolds. Are there any other questions or announcements? I think we are now formally at our ending point. So tomorrow is December 1st. There are major events in the next few weeks. I look forward to participating with lots of you and celebrating our students and celebrating the season. And have a great rest of the semester. And I know I'll see most of you, but in case not, have a fantastic holiday break as well. Thank you all very much.